As human beings move our lives further and further into the virtual, filmmakers will have to continue to answer the question of how to make the screens we interact with every single day look cinematically interesting. After all, while you may be fully engrossed with whatever conversation you're having over text or whatever's happening on your Twitter feed, people sitting on their phones or at their computers just doesn't look all that engaging when it's captured on camera. Fiction filmmakers have already been combating this and have found a plethora of creative ways to make digital interactions appear on screen since the early 90s. Texting and emails have been crafted into every kind of bubble, font, and motion path imaginable. Science fiction movies have always had a knack for communicating more information via monitors and displays than they could without. But there is one subgenre of filmmaking based almost entirely on screens, filled with potential for rich visual storytelling that remains almost entirely untapped. Let's talk about video game documentaries. The good, the bad, and one independent production company that might have found the golden approach. Video games and the process of making a documentary have a surprising amount in common. They're both interactive, pushing the user to connect with the world around them. Their outcomes are driven by the successes, failures, and choices of the person in the driver's seat. And game designers and documentarians both utilize visual elements to tell a story. Maybe these commonalities are why so many documentarians seem interested in the world of the video game industry, but regardless, it's a prime playground for great storytelling. Esports is the most obvious example. The lives and careers of gamers and coaches are littered with drama. Celebrity or underdog competitive gamers can be complex and compelling characters for filmmakers to follow and audiences to root for. The work of game designers is also a wonderful process to explore through the documentary form. Completing a game is an immense task, requiring an unfathomable number of dedicated hours. For indie developers, the competition to get a game recognized is fierce. There's something equally invigorating and tragic about watching such labor-intensive works of art fight for any amount of financial success. The behind-the-scenes perspective of a documentary gives the viewer an opportunity to investigate the deeper meaning instilled in video games. Designers utilize aesthetics and mechanics to tackle some of life's greatest questions and challenges. Developers pour their hearts and souls into these games, and multi-billion-dollar franchises are built off of the fact that tons of people picked up a controller and felt something. And the empathy-driven documentary form is the perfect vehicle to unlock the humanity woven into every single pixel.
I was born with a congenital heart condition. Why not put yourself into your art and make it more personal? Because for me, that's always the most interesting art.
So then why is it so many video game documentaries end up looking like this?
Video games. For some people, they're a blast from the past. Something they used to do at the local arcade when they were hanging out after high school.
While designing or playing a game can be an immersive, all-consuming experience, that feeling is really difficult to emulate once the cameras start rolling. First, there are the technical difficulties that can come with filming screens. Worst case scenario, this involves plasma monitors, cheap LCDs, and mismatching frame rates that cause flicker. But even when flicker isn't an issue, there's the problem of exposure. The majority of digital displays, from laptops to TV monitors, are going to be brighter than their surroundings. So if you expose for the screen, the people are going to be too dark and you won't be able to register their faces. And if you expose for the people, or the surroundings, the screen's going to be blown out and you won't be able to get any detail. Unless a crew is able to set up artificial lighting for a scene, which may not be possible if you're in a convention center or a public place, the filmmaker is going to have to decide if they're going to expose for the person or the game. The exposure problem has the potential to ruin a really key shot, the only moment where the subject and the game are able to be in frame together. Instead, when this is executed poorly, which it often is, audiences are left with a cluttered, poorly exposed image where most of the frame is lost and no information is conveyed visually. Speaking of cluttered, video games are very complex worlds. From 8-bit art style to 3D modeling, each game has its own color palette, pacing, and style, which can be difficult to marry to real-world footage in a way that complements both. How do you take a live-action shot like this and make it feel right next to something like this? Corporate docs mostly tackle the merging worlds question with product placement. Throw the game's logo, artwork, or merchandise in an interview setting, and the audience will inherently understand that all of these visual elements belong together. The result is not only often ugly, but disingenuous. Other docs, especially some of the early 2000s arcade films, try to complement the busy video game screen by making everything busy, resulting in overkill and an eyesore of a movie. The viewer is unable to appreciate the beauty of the game or the live-action cinematography, and any sense of cohesive visual tone is lost. Documentaries are about people. And it's imperative to the emotional impact of these films that the audience is able to feel a connection between the character and the game. Composing graphics, text, and color palettes that complement the game's pre-existing style is one way to create unity. And filmmakers are actively doing this to greater and greater impact. But how do you effectively capture that moment of connection when someone sits down and tunes into the world of a game? How do you make an audience member watch that and feel something? Allow me to introduce you to Archipel, a filmmaking duo that's exploring various aspects of Japanese culture through documentary. You may recognize them from a recent video that featured on gaming journalism Polygon's channel, but they've also been making impressive works of their own, including a 2-part series on the Dreamcast, doc-styled mood videos set in gaming conventions, and interview-based pieces on the development of games from Dead Cells to Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. With all of these projects, they found an approach to filming video games that requires just 2 things: abstraction and simplicity. Across their work, Archipel utilizes blurred images to create tone and also essentially replace the establishing shot. Instead of opening on a scene in a convention center with a shot like this, the audience is brought in slowly through more conceptual imagery. A blurred frame of a crowd gives the viewer enough information to have an idea of where they are without overloading their senses. This style carries over with a shallow depth of field and minimal set design that's featured across Archipel's live-action footage. Real-world shots are also heavily desaturated, featuring primarily off-whites and pastels. The result is the characters existing in undefined space, a dreamlike world that leaves the audience floating, searching for solid ground, which they eventually find in the crisp, dynamic images from the games. In contrast to the soft, dreamy depictions of the real world, Archipel lets gameplay footage be vibrant, active, and crisp. For the audience, the resulting immersion can feel like a little bit of a taste of what it might be like to be a player, as everything literally comes into focus with the game. The camera doesn't feel like it's fighting for exposure when showing a player interacting with the screen. Instead, it leans into the subtle contrast and mines these moments for opportunities to create interesting, abstract images. The camera may focus on the way the bright particle effects reflect onto a player's glasses, collar, or fingertips. And in some of my favorite shots, the screen becomes the primary light source in the frame, emanating warmth, color, and life, like a warm fireplace, calling the player home. Archipel's minimalist approach to filming the real world provides a series of gaps for the complex, vibrant, and stylistically specific games they feature to fill. This balance, created by contrast, creates a feeling that neither of these worlds can exist without the other. And while this certainly won't be the only way filmmakers discover to capture video games, it certainly does feel right.